Hello, everyone, or anyone. We'll see who's going to tune in tonight to this live stream. I'm calling it the Justin Trudeau Political Death Watch. I don't know if that'll get me in trouble with the YouTube algorithms, but as you can see, my dog is here. She was in the backyard chasing rabbits, and it is pouring rain in my little corner of southeastern rural Ontario. And I was going to put her in the spare room, or we do have a crate for her, which I don't like to use, but sometimes you have to because she goes crazy when people come over. But at any rate, she starts out every video with a treat. So if you are new here and just deciding to check out, what are people talking about in terms of the by-election result, we're still about an hour and a half away from the results coming out. The polls close in the riding of Cloverdale Langely, British Columbia, where a by-election is taking place tonight. The polls will be closing at 8:30 p.m. BC time. That's 11:30 my time. So here we go. Candy's going nuts. I'm going to break it in two. It's a big one. Lay down. Okay, shake it off. Lay down. Yes, peek. All right. I got more. Oh, she can see there's more. Okay, lay down. Speak. Come on. There we go. That's it, Candy. Candy the Wonder Pup. Let's see who's shown up. Cryptomaria is writing, what a zoo today. Brett is wondering if I was going to cover this. I've done, I think, I did the one in Trinity Bellwood. And then I did the one in Quebec. We had a by-election in Quebec, and that was in tandem with one that's on the outskirts of Winnipeg. They were both held on the same day, and then so this will be the third one I've done. And there was a by-election before that on the eastern edge of the GTA called Durham riding, which, as I say, it's the very eastern edge of the GTA, includes Bowmanville, which is getting a GO train station, which will allow people to commute directly from Bowmanville to downtown Toronto. So, and right now, people living in Bowmanville, if they want to go to downtown Toronto, they can get on a bus. It takes them to Oshawa, and Oshawa, they get in a train, and half an hour, 40 minutes later, they're downtown Toronto. And in all those by-elections, the Liberals have been decimated. They got crushed in Durham riding. They lost a long-time Liberal seat in Trinity Bellwood. They lost another West Island, Montreal. I know that Brett Skinner, if memory serves, you are from Wyoming, so you may not know the Canadian political landscape as well as Canadians. Maybe you know it reasonably well. I don't know. I know typically Americans don't have too great a degree of familiarity with Canada's political system. We have the Westminster parliamentary system. We do not have a president. We have a prime minister. Canadians do not directly vote for the prime minister, much different than the American Republican model. But anyway, we got a long time to talk. So any questions, query, this is something from when I was in the Army, you would always get from a sergeant giving a course. Questions, queries, concerns. If you fill up the live chat, I will be engaged with it as much as I can. Danny, I caught Danny off guard. He wasn't expecting a live tonight, so he's got to get his coffee, his ticket, and something. If you are new here, I am an unapologetic professing Christian. My Bible is right here. Just things come up. I'm going to be focusing on the political tonight, but you always want to be, if you're a Christian, I think it helps to always be grounded in faith and to be grounded in the Word. So people are exchanging greetings, and HM is shown up. Brett Skinner says, nope, just waiting to hear that Trudeau is out of office. And Danny's writing, Jesus is king, and he is, although Trudeau likes to think of himself as king. That's the way he rules. It's the way he rolls. I wonder if I'm going to get in trouble with the YouTube algorithms for calling this a death watch. I made sure to preface death watch with, it's his political death watch. I do not wish any harm to the man. I do want him, like Brett Skinner, even though he's an American. I think a lot of people recognize that Justin Trudeau is almost the poster child for the WEF globalist agenda, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2035, Club of Rome, all this stuff that so many are waking up to and weren't aware of. A lot of people, WEF, isn't that a conspiracy theory? No, they meet every February in Davos, Switzerland, the world's elite, so-called elite. You will have US presidents, Canadian prime ministers, our cabinet ministers. Certainly the big driver is the corporate sector. The corporate sector finances the WEF. You'll have Borla from Pfizer will be there, and countless others. And I look upon it as a three-headed beast. On the one hand, you have the corporate sector that is there. Secondly, you have government there. And finally, you have educational institutions, the ivory towers, that because they get a lot of corporate money. They are financed heavily by the corporate sector, and that's Canada's universities, the American universities, European universities, everywhere in the Western world. Let's see. I've got Danny writing that apparently we got rid of our human bobblehead, Chrystia Freeland. Not entirely. And she's on the World Economic Forum Board of Directors. She has resigned her position as Minister of Finance. What had happened, and this was a bombshell that came out just today as I was heading into work, is that Chrystia Freeland submitted to the Prime Minister, Trudeau, her letter of resignation, but she intends to run in the upcoming election. So she will not be sitting around the cabinet table any longer. She will be sitting in caucus. All members of the Liberal Party sit in the caucus. But what had happened is Trudeau was going to demote her, wanted to remove her from the finance portfolio, which is pretty much the top job around the cabinet table. That's the number one job. And she was going to be removed and replaced and demoted to a lesser cabinet role. And rather than accept that, she resigned. And in her letter of resignation, which is available publicly, she tweeted it. And I still have trouble calling it Twitter, or rather, I have trouble calling it X. The same way I have Skydome Rogers Center. But I'm going to, just because we've got a lot of time until the results start pouring in, a lot of blah, blah, blah to go through. But this is the letter that she wrote. Dear Prime Minister, it has been the honor of my life to serve in government, working for Canada and Canadians. We have accomplished a lot together. No kidding, they've done a lot. They sure have done a lot. On Friday, you told me you no longer want me to serve as your finance minister and offered me another position in the cabinet. That would be a demotion. And she writes, upon reflection, I have concluded that the only honest and viable path is for me to resign from the cabinet. To be effective, a minister must speak on behalf of the Prime Minister and with his full confidence. In making your decision, you made it clear that I no longer credibly enjoy that confidence and possess the authority that comes with it. Trudeau does this to all women. Trudeau's he's two-faced. No other way to put it. He talks about building women up, but then Jody Wilson-Raybould, and I'm trying to remember the name of the other woman he kicked out of cabinet, Polly Pot or something like that, and now Chrystia Freeland. He doesn't want strong women. He wants women who will just sit down, shut up, and do as you're told. And Jody Wilson-Raybould wouldn't do that. Anyway, I'll go back to the letter. For the past number of weeks, you and I have found ourselves at odds about the best path forward for Canada. So she's signaling that she and the Prime Minister have been disagreeing. Our country today faces a grave challenge. The incoming administration in the United States is pursuing a policy of aggressive economic nationalism, including a threat of 25% tariffs. We need to take that threat extremely seriously. That means keeping our fiscal powder dry today so we have the reserves we may need for a coming tariff war. That means avoiding costly political gimmicks. I love that, which all Canadians have recognized. We just got a GST 1 month holiday from the federal sales tax, what they call the GST or the HST. We got a 1 month holiday on that. Uncertain items, certainly presents and groceries, which it hardly ever applies to anyway. And it's creating a nightmare for provincial finances. It's providing a nightmare. It's a nightmare for small business owners and even bigger business, because now we got to take off and it's creating an accounting nightmare for the business sector, costing. But that's okay. Trudeau has never minded hammering business, especially the small business sector. Biggest one of the major drivers of employment in this country. Hammer them. So she said that means eschewing or avoiding costly political gimmicks, which we can ill afford and which Canadians doubt that we recognize the gravity of the moment. Canadians recognize that life is becoming more and more unaffordable because of Trudeau's carbon tax. But they're not going to get rid of that, trust me. No, Trudeau won't. That means pushing back against America First economic nationalism with a determined effort to fight for capital and investments and the jobs they bring. That means working in good faith and humility with the premiers and the provinces and territories of our great and diverse country and building a true Team Canada response. And she writes on, I know Canadians would recognize and respect such an approach. Not from you, Twitchy. They know when we are working for them, and you're not, and you never have been. And they equally know when we are focused on ourselves. You're always focused on yourselves and your globalist masters. Inevitably, our time in government will come to an end. The sooner, the better. But how we deal with the threat our country currently faces will define us for a generation and perhaps longer. Canada will win if we are strong, smart, and united. It is this conviction which has driven my strenuous efforts this fall to manage our spending in ways that will give us the flexibility we will need to meet the serious challenges presented by the United States. And then her closing statement is, I will always be grateful for the chance to have served in government, and I will always be proud of our government's work for Canada and Canadians. I look forward to continuing to work with my colleagues as a Liberal member of Parliament, and I am committed to running again for my seat in Toronto in the next federal election. So she's not going away. She's out of the cabinet table. She's not the finance minister. She's off the cabinet table. But could she change her mind? Could she decide not to run for re-election? Entirely possible, but I think it's doubtful. I think she sees herself as a contender. Everyone knows Trudeau's going to be gone. It's just a matter of, how soon. Is there any tabs open? Let me close some. Let's see. Binary has. Mr. Smith is here talking about I prefer to still call it Twitter the same way I still call the arena where the Raptors and the Leafs play the ACC, the Air Canada Centre. I think Scotiabank Place now. And of course, Skydome is now Rogers something. Corporate branding is all over everything. Anyway, So binaries here, cryptomeria, Danny. Some don't mind at calling it X. It's all good, whatever. Mr. Smith says it was easy for him to call it X. Fair enough. Binary says that she bought a salad yesterday and it was still taxed. I thought yesterday was the day that prepared foods were no longer supposed to be subject to tax, but the business you bought it from may not have been able to make the adjustments needed to, especially if it was a small little deli or a small little business. It's been tough on them. And we're taxed through Canada's the most has to be pretty much the most over-governed country in the world. We have 5 layers of government. People often don't realize that. We have the federal government, the provincial government, then we have regional government, then we have municipal government, and finally we have our school boards. So there are 5 layers of bureaucracy that can, and there's the municipal level, the regional level, the provincial level, the federal level. And then if it has to do with schools, then you got the school board level. Unbelievable. And if you compare us to the United States, we're around 40 million-ish, and the United States is probably 340 odd million, somewhere in around there. Generally speaking, people talk about the US being 10 times bigger. It's not 10. It's in around 9 times bigger, but whatever. 8 point whatever. But if you look at the federal government in the United States and compare it to Canada, you'll see how grossly overgoverned we are. In the United States, they have the House of Representatives, which is like our House of Commons, like our MPs. They are typically called congressmen or congresswomen. I've never really heard the term congressperson, member of Congress. And they have 360 members of Congress. How many? Using the simple 10% rule, are we going to, the US is 10 times our size, so should we have 36 members of parliament? That might be pushing it a bit, but we have 338. We have 338 members of parliament compared to Americans who have 360, and yet their country is probably close to 350 million and we're only 40. That's insane. And then you look at the Senate. The American Senate is 100 members, and the vice president is president of the Senate. If in the event of a tie, the vice president casts the deciding vote. And so you can say 101 if you want. But in Canada, we're a smaller country, much smaller population. We have 105 senators. We have even more senators than they do in the United States. And in a fashion, if you were to compare the American and the Canadian political systems, whoever the Speaker of the House is, Mitch McConnell or whoever it happens to be, the Speaker of the House of Representatives is basically what Canada's Prime Minister is. Justin Trudeau is simply the leader of the party with the most seats in our House of Commons. And so as the leader of the party with the most seats in the House of Commons, he gets to occupy the Prime Minister's office. And our model is broken. It just keeps getting bigger. We have 338 seats right now, but that's going up by 5, 6, 7 in the next election. It's constantly expanding. In the United States, their House of Representatives is fixed. They're not allowed to expand it anymore. It is what it is. It's been 360 going back, I don't know how long, and it's 360 going forward. They're not allowed to add more seats, whereas the population's bigger now. We need more seats. Let me read what's being said. Danny's writing, we used to tweet. What do we do now? X? Yeah, I still call them tweets. And I don't use Twitter that much myself, but whatever. Cryptomeria, stores don't have to comply. Okay. Well, if they don't comply, do they collect the tax and then keep it for themselves? I mean, it's always somewhat bothered me that a small business owner is also should be paid by the federal government for being a tax collector, because they're required to withhold, to charge extra on goods and services, to withhold that money and then to submit it to the government. Do they get paid for rendering that service, for being a tax collector to the government? In biblical times, I think it was Peter was a tax collector. Some of the disciples, at least one, were tax collectors. And the way tax collection worked back then is it was up to the individual tax collector how much money they would take. Then they'd give to the Romans what they required, and anything beyond that, they were able to keep for themselves. So if the Romans were requiring 10%, the tax collector would come and try and get 12, 14, 15%. That's how they made their money. That's how a tax collector earned a living. Anyway, that's way off topic. Danny is writing, if they could tax the air we breathe, they would. They actually do tax air. Are you ready for this? Consider this. When you go to fill up the air in your tires, and you now remember the old days when you used to go to a gas station and they would have just that pump there, you'd turn the little knob for how many PSI you wanted, and bing, bing, bing. And it was simple and easy. Now, of course, you have the machine, you put your loony or toonie in, your $1 or $2 coin, and then and you fill your, well, part of that money they have to work it backwards and submit sales tax to the governments, both provincially and federally. Well, they've harmonized it. That's why it's called the harmonized sales tax. They submit one tax to the federal government, and the federal government takes their chunk, and then they say to the province, here's your portion, here's your cut of the tax on the air. So it's not the air we breathe, although the air that we breathe is no different from the air that we put into our tires, and that air is taxed. Let's see. Cryptomeria writes, I use posts for any social media. So for Cryptomeria, it's a post posted to X, I guess you would say. I like the word tweet. Kind of got used to it. Danny's writing that both Freeland and Trudeau makes him want to engage in an involuntary protein spill. And HM is saying to Danny that they are delusional. Cryptomeria is waiting for the volcano tax. Mr. Smith is asking, anyone check out the dollar? Do things like this not affect that? It inevitably will, but the Canadian, it's difficult to determine cause and effect. Obviously, the Canadian dollar is constantly fluctuating against the US dollar and other currencies. There's always fluctuations in the value. So how big of an impact? I didn't check to see if there was an outsized, if something beyond what the normal fluctuations occurred or not. I don't imagine that it would have. I don't think most people in the world pay that much attention to Canada. So, Cryptomeria is quoting Tucker Carlson. I'm not going to verify the quote. I'll take you at your word. And the quote is, you could hide under Chrystia Freeland's ego in a nuclear attack. So if we come under attack, nuclear attack, go hide, duck and cover under Chrystia Freeland's ego, and you will be safe, at least according to Tucker Carlson, as per Cryptomeria. Anyway, and Binary is saying that she bought the salad that she was taxed on yesterday when there wasn't supposed to be any tax was a seaweed salad at Costco. Cryptomeria says that Tucker Carlson knew Chrystia Freeland in journalism. I'd love to hear the nitty gritty on her. There's just something strange about her, but it is what it is. Laura Floyd has shown up. Good to see you back. Cryptomary is writing green slime fun, perfect for money laundering. A lot of that, I'm convinced a lot of that goes on with government knowledge, foreknowledge, and even involvement. Danny writes at the gas stations that charge for air to fill up your tires here, that 100% of the money goes to charity. I love that. That's awesome. I wasn't aware of that. And Système Bénévole, a benevolent system. Cryptomeria is writing, I think they do it at the one down the street so people don't steal the whole box. Okay. And are we going to be doing Wednesday night Bible study again? Yes. Because it's only Monday now. And I, this whole time, had been on Top Chat. I'd forgotten to, but I don't think I'm missing anything. I think I'm getting all the messages regardless. So I'll tell you, it's going to be interesting because before the by-election, well, before Chrystia Freeland's bombshell announcement, I said in yesterday's video, someone brought up the by-election, tonight's by-election. And I hadn't, until then, I hadn't even mentioned it. But my full expectation is the Liberal candidate, I don't even know the names of the candidates, I have them up here, for when the results start coming in. The results will be coming in about an hour. So we have for the Liberals, Madison Fletcher. For the Conservatives, Tamara Jansen. For the Libertarian Party, Alex Joel, Joehl. For the People's Party of Canada, PPC, there is Ian Kennedy. For the Green Party, Patrick McCutcheon. And for the NDP, Vanessa Sharma. And there are, in this riding, there are 92,061 registered voters. So that's how many people are eligible to vote. And I'm going to guess, right, it'll be about 25% of the, and we're going to get somewhere around 20,000 odd votes tonight. The fortunate thing about this election, this by-election, is in Montreal, the West Island Montreal, I think it was Verdun-Aymar, La Salle, Verdun-Aymar, that riding, and in Trinity-Bellwood, and I think in the one in on the outskirts of Winnipeg, there were like 100-ish names on the ballot because of a group that is registering candidates, boatloads of candidates in every riding where there's a by-election, to protest the fact that Trudeau, one of the many commitments he made to Canadians that he forgot about quickly, was that we would never again have a first past the post election in this country. He said that after he, on election night 2015, after he had been elected to a majority government, he promised Canadians that we would never again have another first past the post election, and quickly forgot about that promise. And so, in this riding, so how many we've got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with our 6 candidates in this riding, which means conceivably an individual could get elected with just 23% of the vote. It's not going to break down that way. I'm picturing the Conservative candidate. What's his name again? Her name, Tamara Jansen. I'm envisioning her getting 50+%, punching in and around the 50% mark of the vote, with the remaining 50% being divided among the other 5 candidates. Liberals probably get somewhere around 20-ish%, NDP 17%. We will see. It might be even worse. I won't be shocked if the Conservatives get up 60%, just because Trudeau's toast. Everyone is done with him. I'm convinced that the only people still voting for Justin Trudeau are on their seventh booster, that they're constantly wearing a mask every time they step outside of the house, and that they can't understand why they keep getting sick. That's who I think are the Trudeau supporters. It's like, I just had my eighth booster. I always wear a mask, but I'm always getting sick. Why is this happening? It's you people. It's because of you that I keep getting sick. If you would do like me, I would be healthy. I was thinking about that today. Um, I'm just reading what's being said. Cryptomeria says, I like the studies. And Danny says, you didn't miss much by being on live. I need some help with that, Danny, because I'm not sure context. I know I don't always respond as soon as you type and enter and send the message up. Binary is typing that Ontario's legislature rose Thursday for its winter break. They get a nice, it'll be a month-long holiday. That's federally, provincially. It's a great gig if you can get a job as an MP or an MPP. It's recession-proof. Canada's economy, I mean, we've got it's now come out, we have a $62 billion deficit. When Trudeau came into office in 2015, the budget was balanced. We were spending as much as we brought in. Now $62 billion more is being spent than is being brought in. If you took the Department of Debt Repayment, if we had a Ministry of Debt Repayment, it would be probably the first or second biggest department in government, the Department of Debt Repayment. We're under a mountain of debt. Anyway, the legislature had been set to return, there we go, February 15th, but now won't be until March 3rd. So they'll get from now, get all of January, all of February. So forget a month, getting 2+ months. And the government runs on autopilot. The MPs with their, an MP, an MPP, like even an MPP in Ontario, that's a member of provincial parliament. We have different names in different provinces. Some refer to them as MLAs, members of the Legislative Assembly. Dans la belle province de Québec, c'est les membres de l'Assemblée nationale, members of the National Assembly. That's what they call their parliament, the National Assembly. And Brett Skinner is writing, what are you complaining about? United States, trillions. Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. Money is just notional. There is no hard, tangible value to our currencies. They're all fiat currencies. US dollar, Canadian dollar, euro. What's it worth? It's notional. We abandoned a long time ago the gold standard. Used to be that governments would hold in reserve gold and silver, and that was used to as a backstop. That was what was the value of the currency was based on. The more gold, silver, precious metals you had in reserve, the greater the value of your currency. Now it's just notional. It is crazy. But I mean, I'm half wondering whether at some point we're going to hear that democracy is broken and we have to embark on a new experiment, because democracy doesn't work anymore. It was good in its time, but the world has advanced too far. Technology, AI, everything. Democracy is broken, and we have to embark on a new model. I'm not making that as a prediction so much as I'm saying I see that as a potential, a possibility. I'm almost willing to make it a prediction. I mean, look what's happened in South Korea with their president having declared martial law and then being forced to backtrack and has now been impeached, which basically means under indictment. Then you have the situation in France. The government in Germany just had a vote of no confidence, so they'll be going to the polls. Americans just went to the polls. January 20th still seems like a lifetime away. That's when President Trump is slated to take over the reins, reoccupy the Oval Office. We're going to see what happens. We got drones over New Jersey, and no one knows what they are. A guy with a drone business in, I think, Kansas, Midwest anyway. A guy with a business that constructs drones has offered up speculation that the only reason he thinks for drones to be flying at night is because they're trying to detect, sniff out gas, radioactive leaks, or radioactive signatures coming from the ground. And Joe Rogan apparently has kind of latched onto that and says it's a point of concern. We will see. I've got Hank Holiday is channeling Burl Ives, silver and gold, silver and gold. Everyone longs for silver and gold. How do you measure their worth? Just by the pleasure they bring here on earth. Silver and gold means so much more when I see silver and gold decorations on every Christmas tree. And now I just, instead of having 1,100, I'm going to go down another 10 subscribers for singing that song from the old Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I haven't watched it yet. I've watched so far the Christmas movies I've watched so far is I've watched The Homecoming, the old Walton show. I've watched Bells of St. Mary's. I've watched the Alistair Sim, 1951, I think is the year, the best version of Scrooge, bar none. But I also watched another one with Albert Finney. That's a musical version. That's available here on YouTube if you ever want to watch Albert Finney playing the title role of Scrooge. And it's a musical. And the reason we watch that one every year is because I showed it to him one year and he loved it. And now he wants to see it every year. So we do. And we'll watch Santa Claus is Coming to Town with Fred Astaire voicing the character of the postman, answering all the questions, and with Mickey Rooney voicing Kris Kringle. We'll watch that one. We'll watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, etc., etc. Brett's writing, the UFOs, don't you know aliens be happening? I don't believe in UFOs. I do believe in UFOs. I do believe there are objects flying that are not identified. Pardon me. Let me lubricate. So I do believe in UFOs. I just do not believe in aliens. We're at Occam's razor. The reason there's never been any definitive proof of life on other planets, outer space, is because there's nothing else out there. That's space. That's the heavenly realm. There are other dimensions, perhaps, but anyway. Thank you, Brett. Brett saying now he expects a concert. Get singing. That's about it. That's all I know of silver and gold. I just like the way Hank Holiday wrote it. So silver and gold, silver and gold. So any thoughts from anyone with respect to the political situation in Canada? We still don't know when an election is coming. We won't. We absolutely have to, constitutionally, legally, the Trudeau government has to go to the polls. I think the date is October 25th. I don't know when the actual vote would be. If it would be October 25th, or is that the day when Parliament would be dissolved and an election called? But we're looking at October 2025. So still 9-10 months to go, unless there's a vote of no confidence, where the Conservatives, the NDP, the Bloc, the Greens, anyone can put. I'm not sure exactly the mechanics of it, but they go to the speaker and they have a day where they're kind of in control of the legislature, and they put forward a motion that says that the House of Commons has lost confidence in the Trudeau government. And then a vote takes place, and Trudeau, in order to survive a no confidence vote, needs to have either the NDP or the Bloc Québécois side with him. If the Bloc members or the NDP members vote with the Liberals, then they survive the no confidence vote. And so far, I believe it's 3. There have been 3 no confidence motions put forward by the Conservatives, and all have been defeated. I believe that the NDP has propped them up each and every time, because Jagmeet Singh he's coming up to being fully qualified for his parliamentarian pension. And an early election, he'd have to take a much reduced, probably have to take a lump sum one-time payment. And he wants that ka-ching, that CFL, that cash for life. So that's rampant speculation that is part of the at least part of the rationale for propping them up. Let's read what's being written. Albert Collins is here, and he writes, hard to believe there isn't any other life in any other galaxy out in space. Those are the 2 arguments that are put forward. Number one, in all the vast universe and all the planets and all the galaxies, and that there has to be something else out there. And that's one side. And the other side is the one that I'm expressing, where people say, well, keep waiting for definitive, proof that there's life life is out there somewhere in the stars, and we've got nothing. No definitive proof whatsoever. Lots of things that people point to. They go the pyramids. They go I think they're called the Nazca lines down in Peru. I read back when I was in high school. I read Eric von Däniken's book Chariot of the Gods, and I've since watched his documentaries. Depictions of individuals carved into Mayan pyramids and tombs and Mayan structures, and the stone carvings of what appears to be an astronaut and things like that. The only thing is, we don't know how the pyramids were even built. Now, does that mean it was an alien civilization? Going back to my favorite collection of books, my favorite library of books, the Bible, we have the story of the flood. And for those of a non-biblical perspective, just about every civilization in the world has a flood story, a deluge story. It seems reasonable to me, both based on the Bible, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and countless other legends, stories, some call them myths, that there was a massive cataclysmic weather event that happened in the world. And what I believe is that the pyramids predate that cataclysmic weather event. Call it the flood. That's what I'll call it. And that knowledge was lost. And I think civilization sprang back up. And as civilization sprang back up, people said, living in the Nile Delta, looked at these ruins and refurbished some of them. Cheops said, hey, bury me in the biggest one. And then the guy who came after Cheops said, nah, darn it, I guess I'll take the second one. And then another guy came after that, and he said, well, the 2 big ones are taken. Give me the one that's much smaller, which goes against human nature. In human nature, what happens is the next guy comes along and he wants one bigger. The CN Tower was, when it was built, there it is back there. Can I point? Can I get my hand over there? CN Tower. When it was built, 1977, 78, it was at the time the world's tallest freestanding structure. Whatever, I don't know what it surpassed, but then within a year or two, someone went higher, and someone higher, and now it's like seventh or eighth in the world. We always try to go bigger, but the Egyptians apparently said no. Each guy who came along after Cheops said, make mine smaller. That doesn't make any sense. It makes sense if the pyramids were already extant, if they were already there when this Egyptian civilization sprang up around the ruins of a previous civilization, and then Cheops, as the first king, said, bury me in that, there's that big room in there, bury me in there. Write my name on the wall so people will think I built this. Just my view. We got to fill some time. It's 10:49, 11:30, the polls close. And I got to go over to my tab. But before I do, let's see. Brett Skinner is asking, and just to remind everyone, Brett is down in Wyoming. Does Trudeau stand a chance of remaining in power? Yeah, I don't like to think, I don't like to say that anything is impossible, because goodness knows something can always happen. What I tend to think, is, what I was talking about earlier, the kind of a globalist takeover where they say democracy no longer functions, it no longer works. We need to embark on a new political structure because democracy was good for its time, but in this new world with the global challenges we're facing, we simply can't afford it, and we need to cede Canadian sovereignty, American sovereignty, British sovereignty, French sovereignty. We need to cede the sovereignty of individual nation states to a globalist, because to a globalist entity, because the challenges we are facing are global in scope. I can almost script this out in my head, and that's what worries me. If I can script it out, goodness knows they can do 100 times better. So it's almost struck me that why is Trudeau continuing to stick around when, by any objective measure, anyone with two brain cells to rub together, anyone with any degree of intelligence, and I don't, as much as I dislike Trudeau, I don't think he's that stupid. He can memorize stuff. He knows how to fake act, and pretend, such a poser, but that takes a degree of intelligence. And how can he not see the writing on the wall? For another biblical reference from the book of Daniel, I love throwing them in there. How can he not see the writing on the wall? And the question I've had is he expecting something to come down that will enable him to remain as, the regional leader of the Canadian division of this globalist entity? Is he going to be like here's another biblical, is he going to be like Pontius Pilate, as Pontius Pilate was to Rome? Is Justin Trudeau envisioning himself in that kind of role, where there's a globalist entity ruling the entire planet, but you have governors put in place? And does he envision himself in that? These are the thoughts that rattle around in this tiny imperfect little human brain. Whale Oil Beef is here and writes, the original radio, War of the Worlds, location was an object falling. Oh, that's right. Grover's Mill, New Jersey. I believe that was Orson Welles. That was kind of his first big famous thing. What happened was, I forget what year it was, might have been the 1940s. It was before the era of television anyway. And they put on a radio drama, and it was a depiction, like they were reporting live from Grover's Mill, New Jersey, where a strange object has just landed. And at the beginning of the broadcast, they said that this is a dramatization. What you were hearing is theater. But then they didn't provide any updates, and then they just ran with it. So people turned on their radio casually, and they thought they were listening to news about aliens who had invaded. and had landed in New Jersey, and it caused apparently quite a panic. And it makes you wonder. There have been some who have speculated that it was by design to gauge public reaction to something. How far can we go? How will the public react? And whether or not it was by design, I'm certain that after the fact, that certain players learned from it. Well, what can we learn from this? How easy is it to manipulate a large segment of the population? So that's interesting. Good thought bringing that up. I'd forgotten about War of the Worlds. And Hank Holiday is playing on the fact that Trump has, whether jokingly or otherwise, postulated on Canada being the 51st U.S. state. Hank is writing that the maple leaf will be our state ID. If we were to become the 51st state, I think the most logical thing to do would be to have each province as a state. Certainly Ontario, we're probably 17, 18 million. We're comparative with a lot of U.S. states. We're bigger than Arkansas, bigger population than Arkansas, Tennessee, than probably Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, certainly. So Ontario, as a state, the one fly in the ointment might be the East Coast, because PEI. I think the population of Prince Edward Island is 250,000, maybe. I think maybe have one state for the Maritimes: Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and PEI as one U.S. state. The really interesting one would be Quebec. That would be interesting. Would Quebec go along? Or would they want to become their own autonomous country? Then, maybe combine Manitoba, Saskatchewan into one state, Alberta as another state, British Columbia as another state, and then continue to administer the three northern territories, Yukon, Northwest Territories, Nunavut, as territories. They have territories in the United States. U.S. Virgin Island is a territory. Puerto Rico is a territory. They're not states. Let's see. Albert is asking, what is the real reason why the government wants Canadian guns? Why have they expanded the definition of an assault rifle so that I think it's 300 plus new category of firearms have just been banned in this country? And then you have Bill C-63, the so-called online harms bill. We're going to keep you safe. Government's going to keep. I don't want the government to keep me safe. I'll keep myself safe. But I live out the picture over my left shoulder, although on here it probably shows as my right shoulder. That picture notwithstanding, I am well removed from the GTA. If I drive an hour, I get to Oshawa. Oshawa is the eastern end of the GTA. And then from there, it's about another hour or so to get to downtown Toronto. If I want to go to the CN Tower driving, it would take me an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to the CN Tower, probably an hour and 45 minutes. I just throw that out there to fill time because it's 10:58 and the polls do not close for a while. And I've got it'll be interesting. I'm not going to stay on too much longer. Once the results start coming in, I'm just going to keep going. But once the results start coming in, I'll probably go for about half an hour. I don't think it's going to take that long because they don't have 100 plus candidates to pour through. There are only 6 on the ballot. Is that right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 6. So. HM is writing that Singh, Jagmeet Singh. And for what it's worth, his name is pronounced, according to him, his name is pronounced Jagmeet Singh. Most people, because it's spelled Jagmeet, pronounce it Jagmeet. But I think on his Twitter file, on his Twitter profile, he's written Jagmeet. Jug rhymes with hug to help people pronounce it. And my opinions on Jagmeet Singh, one way or another, there's a decided lack of respectful dialogue already in our political discourse in this country and in the United States. And I just can, if he wants to be called, if his name is pronounced Jagmeet, I want to pronounce it the way he wants it pronounced. It's like when people come up to me and they say, do you prefer Gord or Gordon? And I will say, I prefer Gordon. Now, does that mean if someone, I know a lot of people are, especially Canadians are habituated to call anyone named Gordon, Gord. And I can deal with it. It's okay. I'm not going to, but when I am asked, I say I prefer Gordon. But, if someone calls me Gord, I'm not going to ignore them. Anyway, let me read. Whale Oil is writing 1938. Okay. Was that the year for War of the Worlds? But he's saying 1938, there was a casual report of visible explosions seen by astronomers on Mars. Brett is writing from Wyoming, we can only take Canadians who love the Constitution, otherwise take back. Yes, there's two solutions. Either Canada can join the US or California can join Canada. California would fit right in. Gavin Newsom, or is that right? I know it's Newsom. Is it Gavin? Whatever his name is. I've heard him called Gavin Mussolini instead of Mussolini, Mussolini. And can you believe during the COVID era in California they were skateboarding parks. They were plowing in sand in them to keep the kids from getting fresh air and playing. And could something, I put out there as something of a thesis statement that I think we're going to get hit from, 5, 6, 10, 12 different directions and overwhelm the capacity for people to, and with the object toward getting the population to run to the feet of big brother government. Save me from climate change. Save me from disease X out of the Congo. Save me from Islamic extremism and that's in sympathy with what's going on in Gaza. Save me from economic collapse. The carbon tax is killing me. Save me, save me, save me. I think we're heading toward, and I forget who brought it up. I think it might have been Binary Speaking or someone brought up this point of birth pangs. And that, that's a reference to Matthew. Is it Matthew? I think it's Matthew 24. You'll hear wars and rumors of wars and etc. But the end is not yet. These are but the birth pangs, is what it says in Scripture. And birth pangs, anyone who's had children or has been married to someone who has children knows all about how labor works. Contractions get short. The interval between the contractions gets shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. It does seem to me that we're seeing things happening in rapid succession now. Rapid might be, but the interval between events seems to be getting shorter and shorter, like we're heading toward the birth of something. So HM, with respect to Singh, thinks that he's continuing to prop up the Trudeau government because he's part of the WEF, the World Economic Forum. Brett is writing, no, I already read that. Hank is writing, talking about Pan, Dim, and Bill Gates said the next one will get our attention. Okay. I know what Pan, Dim means. You can look at the live chat to see what he wrote, and I'm sure most will figure out what Pan, Dim is. Just add some letters, add an L after the P, and then. Oh, okay. Binary is saying, yes, it was her who brought it up, but it was during a discussion we were having on Facebook. I blend things. Imagine that. Any thoughts? I'm kind of, I wish I had someone to sit down with and talk to, as opposed to reading comments on the screen, but it's all right. Comments on the screen are good too. But we're now, it's 11:04 p.m. I'm going to let Candy out the back there. You see her, and she's finally all dry. Come on up. Come say hi. She wants to go outside now. You want to go outside? Yes. She wants to go outside into the rain. And as I've mentioned before, I'm going to stand at the back door, and I'm a smoker. I should quit. Oh, there was a school shooting today, according to Binary Speaking. She's saying separate topic, today's school shooting. I was at work, so I'm somewhat out of the loop. First thing I did when I got home tonight is I read that letter that she had published to Twitter, because I hadn't seen it when I went to work. I knew she had resigned from cabinet. I was wondering, is she resigning completely from the government? And Hank Holiday is saying that we could start a Zoom one day. Anyone who would like to come on with me live and do Zoom, let me know. Send me an email. The email is in my description. And here's what Binary is writing. 15-year-old female student identified as shooter at Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin. So, wow. Abundant Life Christian. Now, was this 15-year-old a student at the school? Oh, I'm going to let Candy out the back. Shall I say, chat amongst yourselves? I'll keep a look over my shoulder. Wow. 323rd shooting, school shooting this year. I think you meant to write shooting. Yeah, in the United States, no doubt. Oh, it's 6-7 degrees out here. So we're, what time are we? 11:07, 23 minutes to go until the results. If anyone here watching, as I stand at the back door or back having a dart, if anyone has not, as of yet, has not subscribed to the channel, I don't know if everyone here is a subscriber. If you're not and you would like to, it would be appreciated. Hank is saying that he saw a picture online that this shooter posted, and she gave the 666 OK sign on it. Sometimes I wonder about that, Hank, and anyone else. I mean, Is that, am I saying okay? You know, this symbol, which I always took to mean okay, has now been taken as a representation of 666. It's also been, if you point down, they say it's white power because the W, you know, the fingers represent um, W and the circle represents a letter P. I always thought it meant if you do it with two hands, it means three-pointer in basketball. Come get a treat. It's still raining here in Ontario, by the way. Come get your treat. She doesn't mind the rain. I got to get her towel to get her dried off when she gets back in. Snap the burner off. First time I've ever had a smoke on my live. Come on, girl. She'll come and claw at the door when she's ready. We'll see what's being written. Binary's writing, apparently she went to the school. So may be a child of Christian parents. Heart ripped in two. Just because kids attend a Christian school doesn't mean that they're necessarily Christians, and certainly engaging in a shooting at a school is hard. You know, Jesus is the Prince of Peace. It's hardly a Christian act. Has anyone watched that movie Overcomer that I shared the other night? Has anyone watched? I know a number of people said they wanted to see it. We actually watched it again a night or two ago. We watched it in its entirety, and man, I love that movie. And there's another one. There's another movie by the same filmmakers, by these Kendrick brothers. There are three. Alex Kendrick, he, in the scene that I showed you, he's the basketball coach. He has a brother, I think his name is Steven. And he has always had, the movies I've seen, has had cameo roles, brief little roles. And then there's a third brother as well, and they're all involved. Alex Kendrick's, he writes, directs, and acts. Steven is part of the writing team. And I don't know all of their roles, but they've made a number of movies. Courageous, War Room. There's one that's out of the theater, maybe right now, maybe not. It might just be ending in the theaters. It's called The Forge. Looks really good. So did anyone chance to watch it? Another movie they did was called Facing the Giants, and it was kind of their breakthrough film in a fashion. And it's about a small parochial school, a small Christian school in Georgia. They have a football team of about 30 odd players, which means when you only have 30 odd guys on a team, you're going to have some players playing both ways, playing offense and defense. And I don't want to give it away. I don't want to give away the title. But this guy, Grant Taylor, is the name of the coach of the team. And he's been there 5, 6, 7 years, and they've never had a winning season. And the movie opens, and the movie opens with it's the last game of the football season, and they have their chance for their first winning record, or their first 500 season. I guess maybe they're 7-7, and so it was their chance for their first winning season in his time coaching the team. and they lose on the last play. They try for a touchdown, they fail, and another losing season. And then the movie fast forwards to the start of the next school year when they're getting ready for the football season for the next year, and they find out that their best player, who was going to be a senior, their running back, had transferred to another school. And Grant is all upset, and he's like, we pour it into them for 3 years, and then they leave. Why? And one of his assistant coaches says, because no one at the end of the year wants to go, we're number 8. We're number 8. And anyway, great movie. Hank is writing, great Christmas movie that he saw last night. New 2024, best Christmas pageant ever. What was the name of the movie? Last night, new 2024, best Christmas pageant. Is that the name of the movie? Best Christmas pageant ever? I think I've heard of that. Anyway, Binary's writing, watching season 4 of The Chosen right now, lining up nicely with Book of Luke chapter per day reading for month of December, which is something Binary recommended that everyone do in the month of December leading up to Christmas Day, is to spend some time, probably 10 minutes, not even, reading a chapter a day of Luke. Cryptomary writes that he's trying to stream Christmas movies and cartoons. There are a number available here on YouTube. You can get A Christmas Carol with Alistair Sim, or that musical one I mentioned with Albert Finney, the same guy who played Aaron Brockovich's boss in that movie. Aaron Brockovich, Albert Finney. He plays Scrooge, and that was done probably back in around 1980, very late 70s, I think it was 70s. So there's that one. And there's also the Waltons. It's called A Homecoming. So if you're older and you remember the Waltons, let's see, you had Olivia, John, Zeke was the grandfather, Esther was the grandmother. The kids were John Boy, Jason, Jim Bob, and Ben. And the girls were Aaron, Elizabeth, and Mary Ellen. 7 kids. And it's the Depression. And what's happened is John Walton, the father, because it's the Depression, he's gone to another town about an hour or so away to work, and he's there overnight. And he's there every Monday to Friday. He works and he comes home on the weekends. And now it's Christmas Eve, and they're waiting for John, the father, to come home. I say John, the father, because his son, his eldest son, is also John. They call him John Boy. And they're waiting and waiting and waiting for their father to come home. And this is in an era without, they don't have a telephone at their house. Telephones exist, but they don't have one. A lot of people didn't. Money is very tight. Going down to the store to buy sugar, you only buy what you need. And the presents that the kids are going to be getting they're all getting a set of mittens and all hand knitted mittens and a scarf. And that's all there's going to be of Santa Claus. Okay, Binary is mentioning that the movie is the best Christmas pageant ever, and that she says it was great. Sudden, I believe I saw a review on that, and that it is, I think, What Do You Meme did a review on it, and I think I watched that, and he gave it high praise. What Do You Meme is another YouTube station, and one I recommend. I recommend a few. There's another one, Righteous Perspective. I like his. I like V. John Health. I like Dr. John Campbell. These are a number of the stations that and there are more. There are more. I watch Eric Stakelbeck. That's kind of a big one. CBN, Christian Broadcast News, to try and keep me tuned into what's happening in the world and giving me different perspectives on what's happening in the world. And Binary writes that lots of Christian movies are in the theater are becoming blockbusters, and she says amen, and I say amen too. Amen too. The quality of Christian movies has gotten so much better than it was, say, even just 10 years ago. Cryptomary writes, I only got halfway through Santa Claus Captures the Martians. It seems like a Christmas in July movie. And then I have to look that one up. I think you're talking about the Homecoming. Homecoming, I love it. I love the Homecoming. That my little guy, I think he's kind of, but the family, all 7 kids, grandma, grandpa, everyone's gathered around the radio. They're listening to Fibber McGee or some old radio show. And John Boy, the eldest son, brings the churner in from the kitchen, and he's churning the butter. And the grandfather says, churning in the living room? And John says, I want to hear Fibber McGee too. And anyway. And Binary Speaking says, yeah, what do you mean? Did a review on this best Christmas pageant ever. I remember watching the review. So we're 10 minutes away. 10 minutes away. There was an article I read talking about the fact that, getting this back to the point at hand, as we come close to results should start to come in very quickly, that Trudeau is now, quote unquote, seriously mulling over his political future. Will he resign? And that, he's left it so late in the game. He should have resigned 2 years ago. He should have resigned during the Ottawa trucker convoy protest, when he kept hiding, going, I can't come out, I've got COVID again. He should have resigned then, when he abrogated Canadians' constitutional and charter rights that, give us the right to gather and to protest. And the lying propaganda he foisted on Canadians, saying that the trucker convoy protest is being financed by foreign actors trying to destabilize the garbage. There were Canadian police officers, firefighters, just ordinary average citizens were donating to the convoy, to help truckers pay for their gas, their diesel, so that they could protest for a restoration of Canada as a constitutional democracy that recognizes the rule of law, and that you cannot force a population to take a pharmaceutical intervention that they do not want to take. Get my Irish up a bit. Because sadly, I do think, we're kind of in the eye of the storm right now, in the eye of the hurricane. We went through COVID, and now things are still circling around us. We still know there's a storm up there, but we're in the eye of it. And the back end is coming. And goodness knows what is going to happen. Now, what's the turnout going to be in this election? Because of the postal strike, it's going to be very low. People have not been getting, their voter ID card, which you do not need to vote, but people have been getting their voter ID card. That ID card also will say where your polling station is. So the only people who are going to go out and vote are those who are highly motivated, and no one is highly motivated to keep Justin Trudeau in the Prime Minister's office in this country. This will be the third seat that they've lost in the last 7-8 months in by-elections. They lost the one in Durham, they lost Trinity Bellwood in Toronto, they lost LaSalle Verdun Aymar in downtown Montreal. Now they're going to lose. This will be the fourth seat that they've lost. There was one other by-election in the greater Winnipeg area, and that seat was held by the NDP before the by-election, and the NDP retained it. No change. But and the Durham riding was held by the Conservatives, and the Conservatives retained it. But their vote count went way up. They went from 50-ish% to darn near 60% of the vote. Trudeau got absolutely, his candidate was absolutely decimated. Miner is asking if we have talked about the town of Emo yet. No. And what is the town of Emo? Albert Collins is writing, I think this is Albert's opinion. He says that I think he will resign and then join the WEF as a full-time sitting member. And Albert says that's not good. And I can appreciate that comment because if Trudeau was to leave, there's very little turnaround time for the Liberals to elect a new leader who takes over. And my fear is that it would be Mark Carney. Mark Carney used to be the governor of the Bank of Canada. He left. He became the governor of the Bank of England. Big promotion. And then subsequent to that, he's been serving as an advisor to I think it's to the International Monetary Fund at the UN. And you talk about a globalist puppet. Mark Carney is it. The only thing is, he's got a lot more up here than Justin Trudeau does, and my fear is that we could see a full-on propaganda campaign meant to scare us away from any alternative, such as Pierre Poilievre, such as anyone else, and. Sunshines and unicorns, Mark Carney, former governor of the Bank of Canada, governor of the Bank of England. You can't miss this opportunity, Canada. I can think of numerous ways they could sell his leadership. And it might be enough to either knock the Conservatives under Poilievre down to a minority. And if that happens, if the Conservatives only were to manage a minority, they have no natural dance partners in the House of Commons. The Green Party isn't going to cozy up to them. The NDP certainly isn't. The Bloc Québécois is a bit of a wild card. They might. And this is where Stephen Harper, when he had his minority parliaments that he was prime minister over, he was very politically adept, very astute at managing and getting his legislation through by playing the NDPs off against the Liberals, off against the Bloc, and constantly had them fighting with each other. Oh yes, I know the story about the town of Emo. I just didn't know the name of the town. There was a small town, I think it's in Ontario, is it not, up near Canada, up near the border? Town of only 3,000 or so people, but they opted not to celebrate Pride. And so they were fined by the provincial government for refusing to go along with annoying what is happening in this country. Yeah. Mayor had his bank account garnished from Borderland Pride Tribunal for not flying Pride flag in 2020. We like to think we live in a free country, but read up on Bill C-63. There's a member of parliament for Calgary area. Her name is Michelle Rempel Gardner. I think that's her name. And she has a YouTube channel. She doesn't populate it as often as mine. But when she has something important to say, she will do a video. and talking about various legislation that's winding its way through the House of Commons. And Bill C-63, they partitioned it, but not the way you would like. And you'll have to watch the video to understand it. John 5 is writing, what a day for Justin Trudeau. Oh, yeah. First, his finance minister quits, and not only quits that portfolio, but quits the cabinet, and says that he's basically accuses Trudeau of engaging in political gimmicks to try and fool. Here, have $250, and racking the budget deficit up to $62 billion. XVV is asking, what's up? And we're almost there, 11:29. The results should start coming in within the next few minutes. They're going to come in fast and furious. So we will see what happens. I'm expecting, we'll see what happens. We're not talking too much about religion tonight. Some we have touched on it a bit, but I think XVV likes playing devil's advocate. That's actually an office. That's actually a branch of the Jesuits. The Jesuits have this group of individuals who they deemed, or they called, the devil's advocate. Seems fitting for Jesuits to have created. That's where the term comes from, the devil's advocate, playing devil's advocate. And for what it's worth, I don't use the term devil's advocate, but there are times when I play the role of a disturber. So it's all good. Good to have you here. Where, XVV, if we may ask you, what part of the world are you in? Are you Canadian? And if so, what part of Canada? You can be as precise or as vague as you like. And XVV is extraplanetary. He's from Mars. All right. Always got to have one. But I'm something of a free speech absolutist, so we should be there any minute now. Let's see. It's 10:31. No votes have come in yet. Zero out of 0%. As I say, it should be within minutes. And I'll share my screen so you can see. And this will give you the screen is sharing. There it is. Election night results. There are the candidates. Madison Fletcher for the Liberals, Tamara Jansen, or Jansen, depending on how it's pronounced, for the Conservatives. Alex, and I'll pronounce it Joel, for the Libertarian. People's Party of Canada, PPC, Ian Kennedy. Green Party, Patrick McCutcheon. And for the NDP, Vanessa Sharma. So we will see. 92,061 registered voters. If I may ask, SVV, who's Mikey? If that's what you're writing. I'm Mikey. Okay. Yeah. Don't know where you got Mikey from, but whatever. Let's see. I'd like to see some results. I want to go on for about 15, 20 more minutes, no later than midnight my time, and we'll see what happens. Trudeau is going to be, it's going to be interesting to see what happens tomorrow. He has to digest the news of losing his finance minister. Apparently, he's already named a replacement. I forget the gentleman's name. It's a man who he's named to replace Chrystia Freeland. And we have the fall economic update that is due to come out in the days ahead. Chrystia Freeland was the one who was supposed to deliver that to the House of Commons. Now she has stepped down. She's no longer the finance minister. She's not sitting at the cabinet table. So I assume, it's a prepared text. So this other guy, he's going to win it. And let's see. How do we do this? There we go. And I don't feel like putting up with XVV right now, so bye-bye. It's the first time I've ever done that, and I don't like it, but I don't like being badgered on my own channel. Hope you guys don't mind that I did that. If you want to talk about it, tell me whether you agree with me, disagree. But just I'm refreshing the screen. Wow. I would have thought we would have had results already. It doesn't take long. I mean, basically what's happening is there are polling stations. Albert doesn't blame me. And yeah, and that's why I don't like doing it. That's why I don't like, blocking someone, is because, these are witnessing moments, but online, it's just too easy. I feel like I'm being trolled, and that there's very little chance of engaging positively with someone. So, no, he wasn't getting vulgar. He was asking me if I had sold my soul and, answered the question and blah, 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 and getting, I just don't want to put up with it. So, I'm laughing because of what Whale wrote. It's more of the fact that he has a wrench there, and a wrench is a tool. So he said, I agree. I was wondering who the wrench here was. And of course, again, a wrench is a tool. So thanks for the support, guys. I don't like doing that. I mean, I think I'm pretty tolerant to opposing points of view. I just like the tone to be reasonably respectful, and I just cannot believe that it is taking this long. The polls closed at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we're now 7 minutes ago, the polls closed. And basically what happens is there are ballot boxes with paper ballots in them. And might be a school auditorium, a school gymnasium, and there might be 7 or 8 different polling districts, each one having a box. And then they simply flip the box over, count out the votes, and then it's probably done back the last time I wasn't involved in an election. It was, I think the numbers were transmitted by telephone. Now I imagine it's done electronically. And I just find it surprising that we're waiting this long for even just the first few results to come in. Usually a box or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 have been counted already. Is he permanently blocked now or just from this chat? From this chat. I think it's from this chat. See if he's still here. All right. Albert's writing, they usually love attention any way they can get it. Yeah, and fair enough. And for what it's worth, guilty as charged at times in my own life. I mean, none of us are perfect. Yeah. So, sometimes, who knows what people are going through? There's no way to know. And XVV, if you are watching, I have unmuted you. You can chat again. I don't. Ultimately, all I would say to you, if you do watch this, is there is a God who loves you. And broken, fallen human beings like me try to be representatives of that love, but ultimately it comes from a higher place. Let's see. It would be nice if I thoroughly expected that within, certainly by now, 10 minutes in, that we'd have some results, that we'd have some indication that we might be able to discern something of a trend, and still not. I and Hank Holiday, who is down in Texas, has written the reason why it's taking so long is that there is a truck full of ballots that are being unloaded. No, this isn't the 2016 election. This isn't Michigan. Oh, man. Thank you for the laugh. Albert is asking me for my hometown. Are you ready for a little bit of history while we wait for some results to come in? I was born in Port Colborne, Ontario, which is down in the Crystal Beach, Niagara Falls area, Welland County. When I was 6 months old, though, we moved to New York City. And I lived in New York City until I was about 3, till 1969, 1970, and around there. And then my dad got transferred back to Canada. But we weren't even in Canada a year when they called him back, and they wanted him back in New York City. They wanted him back at the agency he worked out in Manhattan. And so he didn't want to go, but finally they were willing to pay him too much. It was too much to say no to. And so we ended up moving back. And moving back to the US, to New York. But this time my dad was making enough money that we didn't have to live in New York City itself. We had spent 3 years living on Staten Island, which is not the greatest place in the world. And we moved to Bergen County, New Jersey. And for the first year, my dad rented a house in a town called Wyckoff, and then bought his first home a year later in the neighboring town of Glen Rock. And when we lived in Wyckoff, I went to kindergarten there, and then grades 1, 2, 3, and part of grade 4 was in Glen Rock. Then we moved to Burlington, and I finished Ontario, Canada, just outside west end of Toronto. And I finished grade 4, did all of grade 5, and then we moved to Pickering, Ontario, just on the east side of Toronto. And we lived in Pickering, I did grade 7, 8, all of high school, then later went to York University in Toronto, lived in Ajax, Whitby, lived in North Bay, spent 2011 to 2015 in Quebec City, La Ville de Quebec, and from 2015 till now, so coming up on 10 years, I've been living in a small town in Northumberland County, little town called Brighton, Ontario. Little dot on the map, 12, 13,000 people. So there you go. So hometown, I guess Brighton. I've lived in this town longer than I have lived anywhere in my life. So, um, binary is writing. Okay. Uh, Sharunian has showed up. Having liberals in family just shows the idiocy of these people. I can't believe we still haven't gotten any results. The binary is writing beautiful area. Port gets a bad rap, but it's beautiful. I think she's talking about, yeah, Port Colborne, right on Lake Erie. And that she lived in Crystal Beach from 2016 to 2021. Loved it. Would love to live there again. It's the only thing. We moved when I was 6 months old. So what I remember of Port Colborne is I drove by the hospital one time because that's where I was born. We actually lived in the town of Ridgeway. We did not yeah, you were blocked for a little bit there, XVV. Stop with the name calling and please, yeah, just let's have a mature, respectful dialogue. And no, I am not a Freemason. I actually view Freemasonry as demonic. Masons are required upon becoming initiating into Masonry, you will be the initiate will be asked something like, why do you want to become a mason, or words to that effect, and then the initiate is to respond, I am in the darkness and wish to be brought into the light, or something very close to that. The initiate says they are in darkness and that they want to come into the light. Well, if you're a Christian, you are in the light. Jesus is the light of the world. So any Christian who says that they are in darkness is repudiating their Christian faith in my mind. And it's one of the things I love about the Christian Reformed Church, CRC denomination, is that you are not allowed to be a member of the church. You can still go and attend services, but you cannot be a fully participating member of a CRC congregation if you are a member of the Masons, if you're a Freemason. Doesn't matter what degree, first, second, third, whatever. And for what it's worth, my grandfather, paternal grandfather, was a Mason. And the one thing is, I never met him. My dad's parents divorced, and my dad's father, I never met him. Okay, so I'm not a Freemason, but whatever. Binary is writing that she loves walking the shores, I guess Lake Erie, collecting sea glass, beach glass. Never done it. Last time I became from during COVID, there was out in Aylmer, Ontario. Many will have probably heard of the church or know that there was a guy named Henry Hildebrandt, who's the pastor at a church called the Church of God Restoration. And that church was something of a lightning rod for pushing back against all the restrictions, gathering. And they kept meeting until their building was seized, taken away, changed the locks. And then they have a large property, probably 3-4 acres, at least a couple acres, big enough for a couple soccer fields anyway. And people started coming from all over. And I actually got to know Henry Hildebrandt, the pastor of the church, quite well. I went down several times. On 2 occasions, the church set up for me to stay over with members of the congregation, strangers. And it was fantastic. Linda and Albert and Lily were the people with whom I stayed. And, this was in 2021. I left the Army in June of 2021. And I used to go to, I was attending services up in Peterborough in March, April, May of 2021, because we had a restriction. Members of the military were restricted to remaining within 50 kilometers of your base unit. And I was going to Peterborough, which pushed it. But I figured if anything happened, I could get back inside the 50-kilometer perimeter pretty easily. But I wasn't willing to go all the way out to Aylmer, which is 350 or so kilometers from where I live, 300 plus. But after I left the military, I made a point of going to Aylmer, Ontario, and gathering with hundreds, 700-800 people. We went to a service there in the fall that they had under a big tent, and there must have been close to 1,000 of us, shaking hands, embracing, the whole thing, and ignoring all the insanity. Okay, we have some results. So the Conservative right now is at 34, 12 for the Liberals, 10 for the NDP, 7 for the Green Party, 1 Libertarian, 1 PPC. So we'll see. That's 2 polls reporting. So there are there are 122 ballot boxes to be opened and counted. They've counted 2 so far. And so how many votes do we have? 47 votes out of those 2 boxes. So it's like 23, 24 votes in each box on average. And it will, this could be the same neighborhood as one of the candidates. This might be where Madison Fleischer lives, or it could be where it could be where one of the candidates lives. So it's way too small a sample size to get any sense of a trend. 0.05% of the electors have voted. And my guess is that'll be somewhere in the 20% range, no more than 25. Albert was in the military. He did 32 years. My trade was SIGOP, or RCC, Royal Canadian Corps of Signals, RCCS. It's on my shoulder. RCCS, Royal Canadian Corps. The funny thing was, I was also at Valcartier, Quebec. So all the acronyms were French too, and I had to learn them. They had IBTS, which was the training system. IBTS was, you had to go onto the shooting range once a year. You had to have your first aid once every 2 or 3 years, and all these regular qualifications. And I'd become so accustomed to the French language that I had someone ask me, how are you in your IBTS? And I'd forgotten what IBTS stands for. And I said, well, it would help. What's IBTS? I know, but I can't. The shooting range, first aid, the training system. Oh, right, les NIAC. I was so used to the French, and the French acronym was NIAC. I still don't know what it stood for, but let's see. Oh, Eat Me has shown up. Another Montrealais is here and saying greetings to everyone. Albert's writing, Jimmy, you were. Yes, I was a Jimmy. Yeah, Hermes on my cat badge. I don't have a cat. I got my logistics old military toque here. Never lost it. Can't see my name anymore, or my last 3, but that's a military toque for Americans. That's a wool cap or a knit cap. Toque, very Canadian word. What was your, Albert, if I may ask, what was your trade? Eat Me saying that today's total tobacco probably shifted toward a blue candidate. I don't think Chrystia Freeland's resignation from cabinet will have any bearing whatsoever on this election. The Liberals were toast even beforehand. So let's see if we've had any 16, 12. Oh, still unbelievable that the results are taking this long to come in. I'm going to give it until, I'm not going to go any more than 12:15. I'm going to put a 12:15 my time, Eastern Standard Time. That'll be 9:15 for Whale or anyone else on the West Coast. Let's see, Binary's writing, bonjour, mangez moi, LOL. Very good. Very good. Yes. Eat me. Eat me is also female. I got to remember that. Montréalaise, not Montréalais, Montréalaise. Il faut utiliser le féminin. You got to use the feminine. Don't. My advice, Binary, just don't engage. But I mean, that's my take. Obviously, engage if you want, but anyway, it's amazing to me that the results are taking this long. And the Conservative right now is winning 34 to 25.5%, but that's too small a sample size. 1.64% of the polls reporting. There's still 98.36% of the polls to come. And so that's just way too small a sample size to have anything of a trend. I still am sticking to my prediction that the Conservative candidate is going to punch up in and around the 50% mark. But just unbelievable to me. The last few elections, by-elections, the results have been very slow to come out, but they had 100 or so candidates on each ballot. And again, that was a protest movement to protest the fact that Trudeau hadn't lived up to his promise. When does he ever live up to a promise? To stop this first past the post garbage system that we have in Canada, and sadly, we've always had it. Eat Me's writing, discovered your channel during Montreal by-election. How quaint you are covering this BC by-election. And I'm an Ontarian. I live in Ontario. So, and I'm curious to know, I've been a political animal all my life. We moved back to Canada permanently when I was going into grade 7. And my mother was a huge fan of Pierre Elliott Trudeau and was angry that every election that had taken place, the Trudeau Liberals, every time the Pierre Trudeau Liberals had come up for election in Canada, we had always been living in the States. And that finally changed. We moved back in 78. And in 1979, there was a federal election. And my mom got a Liberal Party membership. She campaigned for the local candidate, a guy by the name of Norm Kaffick. I'm 12, 13 years of age. She dragged me out, and I was stuffing mailboxes, and they even had me working the phone, calling people and asking them, will you be supporting Norm Kaffick in the forthcoming federal election? And then, so I was introduced to the political game at a very young age. And then I gravitated away from the Liberals. And I had a flirtation with I don't know what to call it, but there was a time where I supported the NDP. Then I moved over to the Conservatives. I moved back and forth between conservative conservative liberal. Last 2 federal elections, though, I voted PPC. And so, a little side note story, when I was in grade 1, the 1972 election between Richard Nixon and George McGovern took place, and the school I attended, Clary Coleman, had a straw vote. That's what they call a straw poll. And everyone in the school got to go and vote for either Nixon or McGovern. And I came home that day from school, and my mom said, "What did you do at school today?" And I said, "Well, we had the election." I was 6 years old. And she said, "Oh, really? Who did you vote for?" And I said, "I voted for Nixon." And my mother was aghast. And my attitude was everyone voted for Nixon. And it was true in our school and it was true nationally. And then years later, when my politics started to drift further away from the left, and when I became more center right, and my mom and I would have political disagreements, she would, if she was losing, she would always say, "Well, what do you know? You voted for Nixon." I always found that cute. Uh, Binary went to school for computer programming. Binary was first computer language I learned, adopted the handle over some 25 years ago. One of my handles that I've had over the years has been English Frog because I'm an anglophone, but I débrouille en français pas pire. I'm not bad for a tête carrée. Albert, my last post was CFB Trenton, right here. Air Force Base, because I was posted to a radar station and the communication center for Trenton, for CFB Trenton. So, and that's how I ended up in a neighboring town. Trenton, I found the town to be a little sketchy. So, what about yourself, Albert? Yeah, I don't think you've written down what your trade was or anything like that. Eat Me is writing that Watergate was the name of a hotel. Nixon was taken down by a honeypot. Actually, not by a honeypot. It wasn't a honeypot. Watergate was the name of a hotel, and that's where the Democratic Party had their national campaign headquarters. They had their national campaign headquarters in the Watergate Hotel, and a famous Washington hotel, even before Watergate. And then what happened is operatives for the Republicans, Nixon, his team, broke in and they basically got intelligence on the McGovern campaign, their talking points, their strategy. It's one of those things, the art of war, know your enemy. Well, if you know what your enemy is planning, you can counter. If you know they're planning a sneak attack, you can get in front of it. And so when Nixon and McGovern went into a debate and they asked Nixon what his policy was on China, Nixon was able to say things like, "Well, my opponent is probably going to say something totally ridiculous and stupid, like," and then fire out exactly what they had learned from that Watergate break-in, and just straw man his and totally destroyed McGovern. So it wasn't a honeypot. The Watergate Hotel. What took Nixon down ultimately was not great investigative journalism by Woodward and Bernstein. What took Nixon down is that somebody, Deep Throat, who used that name, Deep Throat, sold him out, ratted him out. They gave the information. So let's see where we are at. 1612. It's still 2 out of 122. I cannot get over this. It's half an hour. How long does it take to tip open a box with 23, 24 votes in it and tally them up? It does not take this long. It's crazy that it is taking this long. I'm going to think that Hank Holliday may be onto something when he said that they're, bringing in truckloads of votes, because it should not take this long with only 6 candidates on the ballot. And don't worry about failing with spelling. Wow, registered nurse is what binary does. My mom was a registered nurse. Oh, uh, Albert was a firefighter, 651, then MSE op. Oh, me start engine. Sorry for that. I couldn't resist. Oh, um, Justin Trudeau is here. Hey, ya hosers. Uh, yes, I am working tomorrow. So that's why I put a hard limit of 12:15 on this. But I got a good night's sleep last night and I cannot get over this. 16, 12, 10, 7, 1, 1. Only 47 ballots have been counted. I have been engaged in campaigns. They tip the box over. Typically, in a federal election, a box will have 50, 60, 70 votes in it. These, because it's a by-election and the mail strike going on and people not getting notified and probably a lot of people not knowing where their polling station is, are saying, yeah, Myers saying in one refresh and bang, we could be hit with, it could be a huge dump all at once, and maybe that'll happen. And if it does, I hope it happens before 12:15, because I'm not going to go later than that, because I am starting to get tired. Oh, pardon me. Uh, at the end of the day, whether it's Justin Trudeau leading this country or Pierre Poilievre or Mark Carney, for that matter, or anyone else, um, I have my misgivings about Pierre Poilievre. He's a better choice than Trudeau, but that's too low a bar to get over. And at the end of the day, faith is far more important than politics. So, can't think of anything more to say on the matter beyond that. There's so much coming down the pipe that there's no doubt in my mind. There are things coming down the pipe. We talk about it often on this channel. We do not fight battles of flesh and blood, but this is spiritual. This is spiritual warfare in the heavenly realms. And we read Matthew 24 about there will be false Christs. A Christ is, a false Messiah. People are looking for something. They're looking for a savior. People are looking for a savior, and they're looking for a political savior, someone who's going to rescue them, their families, from what's coming down. Are we going to have another 2020 to 2022? You cannot buy and sell in the marketplace. You cannot participate in society unless you take this mark, unless you get this app. If you want to fly, you got to have the arrive can. And there are individuals looking for a political solution to this. And ultimately, there is only one Savior. There is only one Messiah. His name is Jesus Christ. Yes, angry Canadian, I am a professing Christian, and I don't make any apologies. I don't make any apologies for it. I'm also a lifelong political junkie. I was talking about that earlier. If you just popped on, and the fact is, I've been a political junkie far longer than I've been a Christian, and old habits die hard. And I'll state my bias up front. I am very much hoping that Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party forms the next federal government in this country. At the same time, I have misgivings about Poilievre because when he was running for the leadership of the Conservative Party, he told at a meet and greet, he told a guy who came up for a photo op, guy came up to shake his hand, and this guy asked him what he thought, what his opinions were of the UN SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And Poilievre feigned, I've never heard of them, is what he said. I'm unfamiliar with them. And I found that disingenuous at best. I think Poilievre does know what they are, and that he was pretending not to know. Okay, we've got something more of a trend here. Now we have 5 out of 122 polls reporting, and we have what I was expecting. The Conservative is punching up and around 50%. That was my prediction. 48.3. The Liberal, 23%. NDP 19.5, Green 6.9, Libertarian and People's Party both coming in at 1.1. And this is very early, but right now the Liberal would need to double their vote count to catch, and they'd still be behind the Conservative. This is going to be a thrashing. The Madison Fletcher is going to get throttled by the Conservative. I made that prediction last night. I have no compunction in repeating it. This is going to be a thrashing, and the screen is going to refresh in 4, 3, 2. We'll see if the numbers change. Hopefully it's unbelievable that it's only 5 out of 122. And the one caution to this is that we could be looking at 5 polls that are in very close proximity to where Tamara Jansen lives. And so it could be her own neighborhood where all the votes are coming from. I doubt it, but it's possible. You'd like to see 25, 30% of the polls reporting. The polls closed 12:11, so they closed coming up on 45 minutes ago. And how long does it take to open up a ballot box, empty out the ballots, and count them all? We had 174 votes, 174 ballots out of 5 boxes. So you're looking at about 32 ballots to count in each box right now. So probably somewhere between 25 and 40 ballots in each box. And it's taking this long to count them. It's unbelievable. Let's read the last few messages. Binary is writing that regrets drinking the Kool-Aid in 2020. A lot of people, it's easy to get fooled at the beginning. Eat Me is writing, getting back to the Watergate scandal. Nixon honeypot is called Operation Sand Wedge, followed by Operation Gemstone. It's complicated, but the Watergate papers were far from a coincidence. It was a political hit. Oh yeah, he was taken down. He was taken out. It wasn't Woodward and Bernstein, journalists with the Washington Post, broke the story, but they were only able to break the story because someone ratted Richard Nixon out and they exposed the whole thing to them. It wasn't like they did any great investigative journalism. Someone just handed them the story. And that's Binary with respect to your last message. I think that's the way to handle who. Am I planning on a live tomorrow night? No, tomorrow I'm going to take off. I'll be doing a Bible study on Wednesday, which will thrill Angry Canadian if she's still here, or he or she is still here. All right, I will refresh. Let's see. Go to the tab. It's refreshing in 15, but I'll do it now. 200. Oh, wow. There we go. Now we're up to 10. So we went from 5 to 10, and it's 54.6. This is more like it. My prediction was that Tamara Jansen, the conservative candidate, but the conservative would punch somewhere up in around 50%. This is what I want to see. The higher, the better. And the lower, the better for the liberals. Fantastic. And what's even better is the fact that this is a former liberal riding. In 2015, the Liberals won it. In 2019, they lost, 2015, Liberals won. 2019, the Conservatives won. 2021, the Liberals won it back. And now they are going to get absolutely destroyed. 54.6. Oh, that is good to see. And you combine that, Trudeau may be forced to, we might be finding out tomorrow that Justin Trudeau is vacating the Prime Minister's office and handing over the reins to an interim leader, and then goodness knows what happens. Because at that point, if an election is called, the Liberals become basically, in a fashion, almost leaderless. And we look at the political turmoil happening in France, happening in Germany, happening in South Korea. And this is where I could see this idea of, well, democracy is broken. Democracy doesn't work. It worked before, but it's not working anymore. We need a new, this world needs stability. And the only thing that can bring stability to the world and confront these global challenges we're facing is a temporary global political framework to guide us through these tumultuous times. That's what I think could happen. And in order to bring that about, to mute MUTE, to mute any criticism against it, I can see us being hit from 15 different directions all at once. War here, war there, war here, political unrest here, political unrest there, disease X coming out of the Congo, spreading around the world. We got drones, goodness knows there could be an alien invasion. I think we could get hit in so many different ways. Call it black ops, call it psyop, call it whatever you want, that people are, you saw it during COVID. Just keep me safe. Don't let COVID get me. I'm going to die. And I think we're on the cusp of something like that happening. I pray that Angry Canadian stuck around, because I know there's this view of Christian voices as being, we've been programmed. Our society has been programmed to believe that anyone who espouses Jesus Christ, proclaims Jesus Christ as Lord, is to be pushed aside. That's what you're taught by the news, by the media, by Hollywood. And I pray that I'm able to present a Christian voice that comes across as reasonable and that breaks that mold somewhat. I don't think I'm doing the greatest job tonight. It's very late. I worked a 9-hour shift today. I am working tomorrow. And I said, I've gone 2 minutes past when I said I was going to end this, but I was hoping there was another. Oh yeah, we got another update. Now it's six. Oh, it's getting better. 60.4%, 63.2. This is going to be a whitewash. Liberal only 16.5, and this is in a former Liberal riding. Fantastic. I think Justin Trudeau, bye-bye. Death watch your political career. Let's start blowing taps. Justin Trudeau's political career is over. Hallelujah. Let me read what's being said. Albert says the Liberals are finished, and what a heck of a mess they're going to leave. Massive mess. And maybe, again, this is what I talk about. This is my thesis statement, something, everything coming at us all at once and people turning to government and the Canadian government being broken. Well, then, maybe a global government will work better. And we need to be ready because it is coming. And this is going to be a battle for hearts and minds and souls. And you better get right, because when this life ends, this life isn't the end. Uh, and binary saying the results are rolling in quickly now. So to keep hitting refresh. So we're at 545. That's still at 545. I'll give it I'm going to give it till I'm going to go to 12:30 because now things are Whale Oil Beef says that democracy is a slave term anyway. Years ago, I heard this little line: democracy gives you the choice of which party to vote with or choose which brand of razor blade you'd rather cut your throat with or slit your wrists with. Uh, uh, Eat Me has predicted that Trudeau, the great Canadian rat, will only be removed kicking and screaming. It almost feels that way. And Binary's telling me to call in sick. No. I started working at this place. I left the Army in 2021, May of 2022. So I'm coming up on 3 years. I've done over 2.5 years at this place. And I've called in sick once or twice, but because I have been sick. I don't like playing that game. And I know you were just kidding. Larissa Berry, no problem. You're welcome. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, please do. Um, and I've had one other newbie, or sorry to use that term, but I've had one other individual show up. Let's see if there's an update. No, it's still at 593, but we're at 593 votes for the Conservative, 163 for the Liberal, 159 for the NDP. So look at that. This is so gratifying to see. 61.6% for Conservative candidate Tamara Jansen. There's only 20 out of 122 polls reporting that 16.39%. But for me, this establishes a firm trend. My prediction before this started was that the Conservative would punch up in somewhere around 50%. I was hopeful that it would be more, but I wasn't willing to go out on a limb because this riding has been held by the Liberals in 2 out of the 3 last elections, and including the most recent 2021 election, the Liberals won this seat. And BC politics is, I don't live in BC, and I tend to view BC politics as being all over the place. New parties pop up. You had the Social Credit Party. They were kind of the Conservative Party. Now, they have a Liberal Party, but the Liberal Party is conservative. I have a tough time getting a handle on BC politics. And, in the last provincial election in BC, the Liberal Party disbanded and threw their support behind the Conservatives. So we've had an update. 30 now. We're up to about 25% of the polls having reported, and there's more than a trend here. It's a battle to see, can the Liberals even beat the NDP? They're only leading the NDP by 7 votes right now. Forget the Conservatives. The Conservatives have basically lapped. If this was a race, if this was the 5,000 meter around the oval track, the Conservative is already, Tamara has lapped Madison Fleischer and Vanessa Sharma. It looks like Madison can be a male or a female name, but typically I know it to be female. Although if it's a Liberal, they'll tell you what they identify as will the NDP. I've never seen a male Tamara. And this is why people are turning away from the Liberal Party so much, is because, they don't know the difference. Justin Trudeau, won't tell you what the difference between a man and a woman is. This woke, insane, garbage nonsense where they allow men to compete in women's sports because they pretend to be, I'm a woman. Oh, let's see what's. And I've got Eby writing, if Cloverdale doesn't turn blue, it is going to turn into Cloverfield. Uh, it will. The whole country. I mean, I was looking to see what riding does Chrystia Freeland represent, and all I know is she represents a downtown Toronto riding. And so I imagine she thinks that she has a chance to retain her seat in Parliament. It could be a bloodbath. About the only people I think who have a 100% safe seat, if they're Liberals, are those in the Ottawa-Gatineau region. Anyone else, I think, has got to be thinking, we're done. They haven't got a chance. So 966 to 272, there's not going to be a lot of votes. I mean, so, oh my gosh. So this is 25% of the vote of the polls, 25% of the polls. And there have been, we'll call it 1,600 votes. It's 1,579, but we'll keep the math simple. So we're looking at probably somewhere in around 6,000 and a few hundred votes out of 92,000 registered voters. There are 92,000 registered voters in this particular riding of Cloverdale Langely. And if the trend holds, there's only going to be about 6,400, 500. So 63, 500 voters out of 92,000. But the great thing is everyone's going to wake up tomorrow and going to see that the Liberals got absolutely decimated. And this just adds fuel to the fire to push Trudeau out the door. But we got to be careful. What happens if Mark Carney steps in? So anyway, we're coming up on 12:30 now, and this is a done deal. This is a done deal with 25 now coming up close to 30% of polls reporting. These are each one of these 35 is a ballot box. Each one of these 122 is a ballot box. There are 122 ballot boxes that need to be opened and counted. They've counted 35 out of the 122, 28.69%. And the lead now, each box probably has somewhere around 25 to 40 ballots in it. There's no way. The Conservatives are now down over 700 votes. There aren't enough ballot boxes to open to win this race. The Conservatives, and this will be a surprise to no one, everyone knew this was coming, but the bigger the thrashing, the better. And hopefully Trudeau, the sooner the better. The sooner we can get rid of him, the better. Eat Me doesn't think that Mark Carney would step in. Who knows what happens? I think Chrystia Freeland, with her signaling on leaving the cabinet, and we've had disagreements, and your stupid political gimmicks of here, have a 1-month TST holiday, and here's a $250 of your money I'm going to give back to you for Christmas. Vote for me, vote for me. Canadians saw right through that, and she, by signaling that she's going to run in the next election, I think she's positioning herself to be his replacement, or to at least be a contender in an upcoming leadership race. And Albert, that's what you wrote there is beautiful. We're to live in a spirit. Christians are not, and it's a tough road to hoe. There's an old farming axiom, Christians are human too. We're as prone to human failings, to getting angry, wanting retribution, revenge. We have those feelings too. But if we're in the Word every day, we're reminded that we're to meet hatred with love. And we're to pray for those who speak out against us and not to return venom with more venom. When you fight fire with fire, all you get is more fire. And when you take an eye for an eye, the whole world goes blind. Um, and Eat Me is writing, considering the EB election still remains scandalous, I wouldn't count this Cloverdale election one yet. I am. It's one. This is a federal election. It's governed by Elections Canada. They use paper ballots. They don't have scanner. You get a ballot. It's got candidates' names, their party affiliation, a little circle. You mark your X. You put in the box. This ballot only has 6 names on it. And 61.8. And the New Democrat, 4 votes separating the NDP and Liberal, but you can put the 2 of them together and they're still way behind. Even if you added the Liberal and NDP votes together, they, the Conservatives, the Conservative candidate, Tamara Jansen, she is romping. But it's nice to have a candidate who's a woman who you don't have to ask her what her pronouns are because you know what her pronouns are. You don't have to guess. You know. Whereas Liberals and NDP, they live in this fantasy world where people get to choose their pronouns. So this is wonderful. What was good to know, Eat Me? I'm just curious. Oh, about the how the votes are counted. Yeah, it's Elections Canada governs, and that's one area where I find the manner in which Canada administers election beats the United States. In the United States, each state has their own system for voting. Some of them use Diebold machines, some of them use Dominion voting machines, some of them use these punch cards where you pull a lever, some of them can use touchscreen. It's up to each individual state to determine how its voting is done. In Canada, in a federal election, the body, it's called Elections Canada, and they govern it. And whether you're in Saskatchewan or Alberta or BC or Ontario, Quebec, doesn't matter. The voting is conducted in the same manner all across Canada. And it's a much better system to what they have in the United States. Because in the United States, you can have 50 different systems. Jim Small is writing that Trump just commented on Freeland. I was not aware. I've been doing this for the last 2 hours and 30 minutes, so I did not know that Donald Trump had commented. Let's take a look. I'll make a quick comment if I can read what happened. Google. Trump, Freeland. Oh, and that makes sense that he would comment because of a disagreement with Trudeau over how to confront the threat of tariffs coming out of the United States. But I haven't seen anything being written on Trump. It's being reported in the Washington Post, I'm just reading the headline, that Trudeau's top lieutenant resigns over differences on Trump. Al Jazeera is even covering it. They're saying Canada Finance Minister resigns as PM Trudeau grapples with new Trump term. So Max is writing and telling me to Google Donald Trump Truth Social. Probably should do DuckDuckGo. I'm looking at an ABC News article that's from 2 hours ago. I just reduced the screen on my so you can see the results. ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, pretty, they're horrible journalistic outfits, but anyway. Toronto. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau faced the biggest test of his political career after Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, long one of his most powerful and loyal ministers, resigned from cabinet on Monday. The stunning move raised questions about how much longer the Prime Minister of nearly 10 years, whose popularity has plummeted due to concerns about inflation and immigration and countless other things, can stay on as his administration scrambles to deal with incoming US President Donald Trump. The great state of Canada is stunned as the finance minister resigns or was fired from her position by Governor Justin Trudeau. Trump posted on Truth Social, ooh, Governor Justin Trudeau, ooh, governor as in the governor of a state, the 51st state. Her behavior was totally toxic and not at all conducive to making deals which are good for the very unhappy citizens of Canada. She will not be missed. Wow. I get the feeling Trump just likes trolling. Yeah, it says Trump previously trolled Trudeau by calling Canada state. And during his first term in office, when he renegotiated the free trade deal with Canada and Mexico, Trump said Freeland wasn't liked. Trudeau swiftly named longtime ally and close friend Dominic LeBlanc, that's how it works with Trudeau, the public safety minister who recently joined him at dinner with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, to replace Freeland. Freeland did not make that trip. After being sworn in, LeBlanc told reporters he and Trudeau are focused on the cost of living facing Canadians and on finding common ground with Trump on border security and economic issues. And I say that as a Canadian. And as you can see in the results in the election being held right now, there are only 17.5% of 17% of voters in this one small riding in British Columbia who are voting for the Liberal candidate. The Conservative candidate right now is 60.6. Any Americans watching this, we have a different political system than you do. This is like a congressional election, akin to a congressional district. And whichever candidate of these six gets the most votes, that candidate gets to represent the riding. And so it's a slam dunk. Tamara Jansen of the Conservative Party is going to win this seat and will join the caucus of the Conservative Party. There will be one less sitting member of the Liberal Party because this riding was held by the Liberals. Now they've lost it. They lost Trinity Bellwood, Toronto. They lost La Salle et Mar Verdun, downtown Montreal, West Island, Montreal. And now they're losing BC. Every by-election, they're getting creamed in. Let me read what's being read now that everyone's rejuvenating me without giving me the. Yeah, I saw the quote. I read what he tweeted on ABC News reported, and I think they probably got it right. Anyway, let's see what's being written. Jim Small, we build. You got his post, buddy. You're going to laugh so hard. It's amazing. I already did laugh at what I read. The great governor. I laughed that was a great line, calling Trudeau a governor. But I tell you, I was talking about this earlier in the evening, talking about the fact that we're living in such an incredibly unsettled world right now on so many different fronts. Let's talk about New Jersey. We got these drones. Could that turn into something? We have Zaire, Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, Disease X. Hundreds of people had reported as having died from it, probably thousands more infected. Who knows what the story is going to be there that they're going to pummel us with. You got, of course, we have the situation between Israel and Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, Iran. Then you got Syria, and who knows what's going to happen there. And then, it wasn't too long ago that we had rioting happening in downtown Montreal during a meeting of NATO, and businesses having their windows smashed and cars being lit on fire. And economic issues could come up. What if we get a sudden spike in interest rates? There's so many things happening that it's like I get the impression that in the months or in the weeks or months ahead, that we could hit an inflection point where everything comes at us all at once, and that we are told, and I'm repeating something I said earlier, is that democracy doesn't work anymore. It was a good system, but it has come. It's time to look to a different political model, because the challenges the world are facing right now, democracy doesn't work. We need a global system of governance to face challenges that are global in nature. And I was speculating that Trudeau is maybe hoping to hang on until that an eventuality like that comes into play, and then he'll be placed as the governor to govern over the Canadian territory. But that our democratic institutions rule the law so much that we rely on in the Western world, we could watch it vanish. And I do think that is coming. And I approach world events from very much a Christian perspective. And without my faith in Jesus Christ, I probably would have been huddling in my house, wearing a mask, afraid to go outside during the COVID era. But I wasn't like that. I was traveling up to Peterborough and gathering with a church of 150, 200 people, shaking hands, hugging, while everyone else was scared. And now the only people, I think, the people we really have to be concerned with are those who's voting. Who are these 17, 16% of people voting for the Liberals? I'll tell you, I have a guess. There are people who are waiting. They've made an appointment to get their 7th or 8th booster shot. They wear a mask all the time, and they're angry at me because they think I'm the reason they keep getting sick all the time. There are your Liberals for you. Let me read what's being written. So much has been coming down. Wondering if the term governor did refer to the 3rd season of The Walking Dead. That governor, I never saw The Walking Dead, but I don't have TV. Jim Small writes, look at Trudeau now, Liberal symbol on his mic platform tonight. This guy is out of hand. He's got a new Liberal symbol. Let me guess, it probably includes part of the rainbow or something. Binary is writing Monday. Trudeau was having a bad day. Tuesday, Trudeau, you're having a bad week. Wednesday, we could wake up to him resigning, and then, they've talked about the fact, it's funny, we in Canada, we've listened to the news about what's happened in France, about what's happened in Germany, about what's happened in South Korea. But we don't live there. Are people living in Seoul, South Korea, in Hamburg or Berlin, Germany, or in Paris, France, are they that worried? We're being told, political instability in France, in Germany, in South Korea. Now, they're going to talk, if the Trudeau government falls, they'll be talking us about Canadian democracy in the same context. And getting back to a comment much earlier by someone, I forget who wrote it, asking about, has there been any impact on the Canadian dollar from Chrystia Freeland, our Minister of Finance, resigning her position? Has that impacted the value of the Canadian dollar? Well, if all of a sudden the Canadian government falls to a vote of no confidence, or Trudeau asks to have the legislature disbanded for the purpose of calling a federal election, that's the way we have elections in this country. But how will it be portrayed to Americans, to Europeans? Canada, facing period of political instability, feed a narrative that democracy doesn't work anymore. Look what's happening in Germany, in France, in Korea, now in Canada. Oh my goodness. cautionary times. Let's read. Whale Oil says that a new political system can be formed under the valid rule of common law. Breaking down old systems seldom happens without major upheaval. That's just history speaking. Old systems of running things, established orders do not break down organically or easily. It quite often it's a time of severe upheaval. Max Power, breaking news, Trudeau found hiding in his room, hiding under a pile of blankets, listening to Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On. And then he writes, somebody's got a case of the Monday. Max Power is saying, if you watch the clip of Trudeau's speech at his fundraiser tonight, he doesn't mention Freeland at all. No surprise. All smiles, talking like he's in campaign mode. He is you're saying he seems? No, he is delusional. And Max saying, hard to imagine him resigning. Ego won't let him. I think in the case of Joe Biden, I think Trudeau can be forced out. They forced Biden out, and I don't think Biden wanted to go. Certainly his wife didn't want him to go. So we'll see what happens. Let's take a final look at the numbers, and then I'm going to call it a night because it's 12:46 where I am, and I am working tomorrow. So right now we got 65 out of 122 polls reporting. Let's see what we get to. And now we're at 66. So just one more ballot box got opened. But this is an absolute whitewash. 2,073 votes for the Conservative, 584 Liberal, 541 NDP, and 3,374 votes. So it's only going to be 6,000 some odd votes. 6,000 and a few hundred votes are all that are going to come out for this by-election. But it just adds one more nail in the coffin that is becoming Justin Trudeau's political career. Came into power, strong majority, 2015. What was it? What did he say? Sunshine, sunny ways. Welcome to sunny ways. And now he's gone. And Binary would like to see a live on Argentina. There's a messy country. The Peronistas and everything else. I'm just reading the last thing. Jim Small, he thanked the campaigners. True, Max. That was a crazy way to address any camera after that day. It's all about Trudeau he's not a master of it. He's just, it's his go-to talking points. Max Power saying sunny ways. Yeah, it took me a while to remember. And Jim Small has given me a subscribe. Thank you very much, sir, and a Merry Christmas to you as well. I prefer Christmas to the X. Randy, strong eagle couldn't take the position of finance minister. Oh, man. The rejection of the NWO makes things very dangerous. Yes, and I think Hank is getting to my point about systems when they break down. Doesn't matter whether it was Tsarist Russia and the Bolshevik Revolution. Brutal. Doesn't matter whether it was, King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. Brutal. Look at the United States when that nation was born. Had to fight a brutal revolution. When you have an established order, that established order doesn't go away easy. Not everything is Syria where the guy just jumps on a plane and goes to Russia to hide. And that situation isn't over yet. There is more to come in Syria, more to come in France, more to come in Germany, more to come in South Korea, more to come in Canada, more to come in the United States. January 20 is just around the corner, but it seems like a light time away. And Max making a good point, leveraging off of that, me mentioning Marie Antoinette, I bet. Let them eat cake and let them have their $250 check. You must be Canadian because you wrote check with QUE. Americans look at that. I've been down in the States and they go, what's a SHQ? I worked for a company. We had a branch office in Buffalo, New York, and I went down as part of the training crew, orienting them. And it was Canadian material, and it was talking about their paycheck. And they were looking at it and going, what is this SHQ? What's a pay SHQ? I don't want a SHQ. I want a check. Just reminded me of that. Anyway, whale oil is telling me to go to bed, and I'm going to listen to his advice. God bless everyone. And I'm going to end the videos the way I like to end all my videos, because as I've said repeatedly throughout tonight, and Danny and others know this, Hank knows it, Eat Me knows it, Whale knows it. I am a professing Christian. And even if you're not, I ask you to receive these words because they're good words. It's a nice thing to have said to you, and it's not my words. I borrowed out of scripture. It's right out of the book of Numbers. May the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord God, creator of all things, may he make his face to shine upon you, and may the Lord grant you peace. Even in these crazy political times, you can find peace, joy, comfort by putting your feet on solid ground. And that solid ground, from the Christian perspective, that solid ground is Jesus Christ. So we'll talk to y'all later. Yeah, I get into so much trouble. The chat gets filled up and I want to read what's being said. I had a pizza guy ask me, isn't it good that there is no more tax? He was serious. I said, I guess 60 days, eh? Haha, so exciting. Anyway, peace all, and we'll talk to y'all Wednesday night. Good night.